Finally, the answer to what is your biggest weakness? That terrible interview question that sometimes people ask. Now, when it comes to answering this question, there are some things that you really should do and some things that you really cannot do. So first of all, I'm going to start with the things that you really cannot do, right? Because answering a question in an okay way is fine, but committing one of the cardinal sins of interviewing is not fine, right? And that's what I want you to stop doing. So that's why I'm going to talk about those first. So what are the things that you cannot say, or types of things, when you're answering the "what is my biggest weakness" question? Well, first of all, don't actually talk about your true weaknesses, right? Might be obvious, but if you have problems with things like time management, or if you have problems with interacting with people, don't talk about those things. The whole point of this question, well, actually, this question is a terrible question. I don't understand why interviewers asked it, right? I've interviewed for, hundreds of people for one of the biggest companies in the world, and I never asked this question because it's an awful question. People obviously are only going to prepare for it, and it's a question that they are going to use for their interview technique, right? It might screw up their whole interview even though they're a great candidate. It's a terrible question, but people still ask it. So, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you're doing the right things. So going back to what I was talking about, what you do not want to do at the other end of the spectrum is talk about something disingenuous. So what I mean by that is saying things like the classic, well, I work too hard, right? My biggest weakness is I work too hard, or my biggest weakness is I'm a perfectionist, right? Because I know what you're trying to do. And some people teach this, and it's completely wrong because interviewers, anyone who's interviewed more than 3 people can see around this, which is you're trying to reset your weakness as a strength, right? Is it actually a weakness that you work too hard? Is it actually a weakness that you're a perfectionist? So you don't want to talk about those things because the interviewer will be able to see straight through it, and they will know that you've just practiced some interview answer that you've seen somewhere, right? So to recap, what you don't want to do, you don't want to talk about real weaknesses, A, and B, you don't want to talk about something which is not actually a weakness, right? You're trying to spin it so it sounds like a strength. Don't do that either, because that's not answering the question fairly. That's not answering the question respectfully to the interviewer. They'll know exactly what you're doing, and either of those are terrible, terrible answers. So what do you do instead? And you should prepare something in case it comes up. But what you talk about, and this is the interesting part, what most people get wrong, is what you actually talk about, the actual answer you give to what is that weakness, almost doesn't matter. What matters is the explanation around it, right? That's the important thing. So what I want you to do when you're answering this question is pick something which would not impact your day-to-day work life, right? But is something that would be helpful, right? So a really good one is public speaking, right? Because a lot of people suffer from that. A lot of people suffer from having public speaking issues. Most jobs it doesn't matter, right? You don't have to actually go, unless you actually need to be a public speaker in your role. Don't say that, because then that's a true weakness, right? And maybe you shouldn't be applying for this type of job anyway. But something that is not core to the role that you'll be doing. If you're an accountant, don't say I struggle with math, right? That's not going to get you the job. What you need to focus on are the things that are, secondary, as I said, kind of outside of the job, which could be helpful. And in an ideal world, the best person at that role would have those skills. But if you don't, it's not that much of a problem. So pick something like that. Public speaking, like I said, is a really, really good one. Okay? Then what do you do? Because once if someone asks you, what's your biggest weakness? And you say, public speaking, right? You can't leave it like that. That's not how an interview works. So you need to be an active interview. It means you need to add more to it. So what you do in this case is you talk specifically about how or why that weakness came up, and what you've done to solve it, right? That's the important thing. What have you done to show that you're overcoming this weakness, right? It's absolutely loaded with psychological tricks when you do that, right? Because it will get the person, the interviewer, thinking to themselves, oh, okay, so this person's actually working on their weakness, right? It's a fantastic attribute that you want from your future employers. So, what do? You talk about your weakness, maybe it's public speaking. You say, oh yeah, it's been an issue since, name a time when something happened that allowed, that showcased this. So, it was during college actually, I had to do a presentation and it went badly, blah, blah, blah. But ever since then, I've noticed this. And I realized that public speaking is actually something that, if I can fix it and I can get better at it, it's going to make a big difference because of whatever reason. And that reason should relate to the job that you want to get. Because it allows me to speak more confidently in front of clients. Because it will allow me to speak more confidently in front of the product managers in our team. Because it will allow me to speak more confidently in front of journalists. Whatever it is that you do in your current role, or the role that you want to get, that you're interviewing for. And then, importantly, once you've done that, you then talk about the strides that you have made to fix it, to get better at it, right? So it might be, so with public speaking, you could say, actually, I've realized this is a weakness. I know why I need to get better at it. It would have this impact. And what I've actually done to try and overcome this weakness is to join a debating club. Where I'm kind of forced to get up and speak in front of people. It's quite challenging, and it's not always the most fun part of my week. But I actually use that time to improve myself, right? So I would still classify public speaking as as one of my biggest weaknesses, but it's something that I'm really strongly working on because I've realized the benefit of being much better at it, right? Absolutely perfect interview answer. If you answer it that way, the interviewer is going to be blown away, right? It's so important that you have each one of those steps, right? So let's recap. You talk about a kind of secondary, subsidiary weakness that you have that won't impact your job at a core level, right? So you don't talk about a real weakness and you don't talk about a disingenuous weakness like, I'm perfect, I work too hard, right? Don't do that. So you talk about this core weakness, this non-core weakness. That's what we want to focus on. Then you talk about when you actually notice this weakness coming up. Then you talk about why that weakness is something that if you overcame it, you realize how it would benefit the role that you're going to get. And then finally, you talk about the work that you are doing to overcome it, things that you've done, classes that you've been to, whatever it is, right? And then you mention that, hey, it's still a weakness, but it is something that I'm actively overcoming, right? So powerful when you do this. That is how you answer, what is my biggest weakness? I've done this so many times with so many clients and it works to perfection. So I'm going to be recording more videos on what you say in different scenarios, in different interviews, both for, people who are in their kind of mid-career and also in their late career, because that's who we help. We help people get hired into their dream roles, their career-defining positions. We call it the one position that you deserve that's going to make all the difference to your life, right? That's going to mean more fulfillment and impact and earning potential. We do this every day and we're very good at it. Okay, so I want you to hit that subscribe button on this video because then you'll get notified when I record more videos and I release them talking about all these topics and more. So press that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next video.